guys? It's Sam.
Dean.
We're here to talk about the top 5 phones of the year. We got the Google Pixel XL,
Note 7,
LG V20,
Galaxy S7 Edge,
and the iPhone 7. So we're going to talk about all the categories that make these phones great, compare 10 different categories for each of the phones, and we're going to do some benchmarks and see which one is the best or which one might be better for you. First off, we're going to talk about build quality, and we're going to start with most durable to least durable. So I would say out of these phones, personally,
V20.
yeah, the V20 is probably.
It's marketed as a durable phone. It's called they call it a military grade spec. They basically put that on the V10 as well. It's supposed to say like, oh yeah, you can throw this thing around a little bit and it won't completely shatter on you.
So it has Gorilla Glass 4 for the glass on the front. It does have a metal build, metal on the back. It actually has plastic on the top and bottom, and that's for the signal. It does have curved glass on the top, but it's very subtle of a curve. It's extremely small, and it's only at the top and bottom. And I think that it's something that you don't have to worry about unless you're like really bad on your phone.
You can barely notice it.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell, but it feels nice. The actual feel of the rest of the phone, though, feels kind of cheap to me. And also the camera module with the 2 cameras in it is all glass, very easy to crack. So not only that, this has removable battery, which is
Very
cool,
rare.
but you do have to worry about water damage because it does not have any kind of water resistance because of the removable battery. So I would say in terms of durability, it's a pretty good phone if you're not around water.
Next one's the Pixel.
Yeah, the next one I would say is the Pixel, also a phone that's not water resistant or waterproof. It does have Gorilla Glass 4 as well. It doesn't have any kind of curved glass on it, which is really nice, but it does have glass on the back, and that's why the Pixel is not as durable as the V20 in our opinion.
The IP rating on this is not high though. It's only recommended like maybe like light rain. You could be okay, or like you can get rain on it, but not like the S7 and the iPhone 7 where there are tests where they submerge them underwater, and the S7 is actually rated for I think
IP67.
67.
This is IP53, which is a huge difference.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the S7 is IP68, the iPhone 7 is IP67,
yeah.
and the Pixel is IP53, which I believe is the same as the V20, but don't quote me on that one.
Yeah.
So in terms of durability and water, this is not going to be very good, but it is metal. It doesn't have a camera bump on it, which is really nice.
That's the only phone actually, I think.
Yeah, it's the only one without a camera bump, and that's because it has a taper, which I don't know if you're going to see on the video, but on the bottom it's thin, and when you get to the top it's thicker, and that's how they hid the camera in this thicker part so that there's no bump. However, it is covered in this glass, which not only is prone to cracking, but also causes a halo effect when taking pictures. If you look online, you can see a couple examples of that. So in terms of durability, though, it is pretty good with the Gorilla Glass 4. And the next one I would say out of these is probably going to be the iPhone 7, and only because it is metal on the back, which the Galaxy Note 7 and Galaxy S7 Edge are all glass. So this is metal on the back. This is the jet black. It's pretty scratch prone, so just be careful of that.
It looks nice.
It does look pretty. It does have a ionic screen or something. I remember the 6S came out with like an ionically bonded screen that's a little bit stronger than the 6, and this does have that technology
Apple
as well.
words.
Yeah, it's basically like Gorilla Glass. So it's pretty strong. It does have curved glass on the sides though, so something to consider.
Not like the S7 or like the Edge. It's not like an Edge display. It's only a subtle.
It's only the glass that's curved, not the screen. And then the camera does have a pretty substantial camera bump. So just two things to keep in mind. But it is water resistant, IP67. So 5 feet of water, it is good for that. So that is a pretty durable phone. And then the next one would be the Galaxy Note 7, which, as you guys know, blows up. So this phone pretty much doesn't exist in terms of the market today. But
we have one. So.
We have one that I'm going to send back to Samsung. This does have glass on the back and on the front. And
very easy to crack.
It's Gorilla Glass 5 though, so this is more durable than the S7 Edge. And the glass is same on the back and the front in terms of the curve. So it feels really nice. It's easy to grip. It's not going to be dropped as often as the S7 Edge. The camera does have a very unsubstantial camera bump. It's very subtle compared to, say, the iPhone or the V20.
The S7 Edge is the same way.
Yeah, they did that with the S7 Edge. And it is, like I said, water resistant IP68. Technically, this is rated higher than the iPhone, but in tests that I've seen done, the iPhone usually survives in deeper waters. So take that with whatever you want to think.
Basically, if you throw it in the toilet, if you drop it in the toilet, don't worry about it, as long as you didn't crack it.
Yeah, if you get it in the pool or something that's not just regular water, then you might want to be careful. And then we have the S7 Edge. This does have curves on the front and on the back, and even the regular S7 has curves on the back. So that's one reason why it's not as durable. And the camera bump is pretty subtle on this phone.
Same as the Note 7.
Yeah, same as the Note 7, and it also is water resistant, but it's only Gorilla Glass 4, which is why the durability score on this one is a little bit lower than the Note 7. So the next thing we're going to talk about is battery life. In terms of battery life on all these phones, the biggest one is actually the S7 Edge. So now we're going backwards. This has a 3600 milliamp battery. However, it's only quick charge 2.0, not 3.0, and it's only micro USB to charge, not USB Type C.
Every other phone is USB Type C except for the iPhone.
The one nice thing about this phone is it does have wireless charging, and it's not just regular wireless charging. It's Samsung's proprietary fast wireless charging, which is really nice. I've used it before. It works really well if you like wireless charging. So that's the S7 Edge with the best battery life.
I used it for 3 weeks, and you can go a full day, like, no problem.
I used it for 6 months. No problem with the battery on that phone. Really well built. Now, the next phone with good battery life, I actually would say that the Pixel has one of the best batteries on any of these phones. It's not the biggest battery, but it's one of the better battery lives, and that's because this has a 3450 milliamp battery, and it has hardware and software built by Google, so it's the most optimized out of these phones. So you're going to definitely get the most battery life out of this phone. Even compared to the S7 Edge, I would say it's a little bit better than the S7 Edge.
TouchWiz is kind of bad on battery life.
So in terms of battery, this is pretty good. It has USB power delivery instead of quick charge. So you do have to get USB power delivery chargers. It does have the chipset built in for USB quick charge 3.0, but it doesn't work because of the software. So this is really only meant for USB power delivery, and it does use USB Type C. However, it does not have any kind of wireless charging, so if you like wireless charging, you're not going to get that with this phone. And the next phone after this, in terms of battery life, I would say would be the Note 7. It does have a 3500 milliamp battery. It's a little bit smaller, 100 milliamps smaller than the S7 Edge. It gets decent battery life. In my experience, though, I didn't get the greatest battery life, and that's probably because I used it so much.
They had an explosion feature. It's really nice.
Yeah, the main thing that was going on with this phone was the batteries were exploding, and Samsung still hasn't really figured out why, but yeah, this phone pretty much doesn't exist. But in my experience, I used this phone since it came out until the Pixel came out, and the battery life is, in my experience, decent, but not super amazing like the S7 Edge was. And the surprising thing is this is the same processor as the S7 Edge, same memory, same resolution screen, however 0.2 inches bigger, same camera, almost the same phone. It just has a few extra features like the bigger screen, the S Pen, and the iris scanner, which scans your eyes. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but it gets a big difference in battery.
It could have to do. It has a slightly different version of TouchWiz. It could be that, but who knows?
Yeah, the Grace UX is a little bit newer.
You can't get it anymore, so who cares?
The next one would be the LG V20 with the removable 3200 milliamp battery. Now, removable battery is a really cool feature these days. It's a rare breed to have something like that. LG is probably the only flagship manufacturer that's still putting that in. However, it is a smaller battery, so it's not going to be as good as those other phones we mentioned. And it does have Quick Charge 3.0 over USB Type-C, so you can get pretty good battery life with this phone. We can't say that we've tested it to tell you whether or not it's really good, because it just came out today. But based on what we've read and what we've seen online, it gets pretty good battery life. And then we have the iPhone 7, which I'm going to say this about the iPhone. If you use the iPhone extensively, you will not get very good battery life because it's a small battery. It's about 1900 milliamps, and yes, the screen's 720p, but it gets bright. And if you use this phone, it's got a very, very fast A10 chip. The battery life is not very good when you're using it like constantly for games and videos and web browsing and all that. But for standby time, this is the best battery out of all of these, and that's because the hardware and the software are made by Apple, so they can really optimize everything. So for standby time, if you're not using your phone a lot, if you're just doing phone calls, occasional texts, things like that, this is going to be great. But if you're using your phone for video and games and all that, you're probably not going to get an iPhone anyways, because you know that the screen isn't as good and the battery's not as good. And that brings us to our next topic, which is camera. So camera out of all these phones,
they all have good cameras.
They're all pretty good cameras. Well,
you buy a phone in 2016.
I wouldn't say the V20 is that good of a camera.
Okay, with the exception of the selfie camera, it's yeah.
Yeah, we were playing with the V20 today, and the camera from our first day of use, the front camera is total potato
trash.
camera.
It's trash. It literally looks like a phone from like maybe 2008.
Yeah, it's like a cartoon. It looks really bad.
I don't know why. Oh, by the way, it has 2 cameras on the back, not just one, 2. You got one wide, 8 megapixel, and a 16. It's honestly like it's pretty cool, but the front camera, the selfie camera.
I just have to say, quality, not quantity. 3 cameras that aren't very good.
That is true.
Suck. So
Yeah.
this is not a very good camera. The Pixel has an interesting setup because it has EIS, which is not the same as OIS. It's an electronic image stabilization, which does work very well for video. They also have a technology where when you take a picture in low light, it takes multiple pictures, which it uses HDR, and has a special algorithm that does sometimes better than OIS, but not always. So it's interesting. I would say the Galaxy S7 and Note 7 and the iPhone 7 are all on the same level almost. They're all very good cameras.
That also has a form of stabilization. I don't know exactly what, but it's the V20 I'm talking about. You can walk with it and take a video, and it's actually pretty stable.
Yeah, so I mean, if you get an iPhone, if you get a Pixel, if you get a Samsung, like an S7 or Note 7, all very good cameras.
You buy a top-end phone in 2016, you're going to get a good camera no matter what. Honestly, it's only nitpicking things that you really can look at.
The only thing I would say, the Samsungs are really, really good with their dual pixel cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So what's good about that is in low light they're really good, and for autofocus, it's very, very fast autofocus.
I think these have the fastest shutter speed as well.
Yeah, so the Samsungs I would say are probably top of the line for some of the features, but the iPhone does have more true-to-life colors if you prefer that.
Right.
The Pixel is kind of in the middle, where it has cool technology. It has sort of punchy colors like the Samsungs, but not as punchy as the Samsung, and they're not as true to life as the iPhone. So
the LG's like that.
Yeah, so this Pixel is kind of in the middle, and the LG is also kind of true to life colors. So if you want like the realistic pictures, then maybe go with an iPhone or go with a Pixel. If you want the more punchy colors, which I tend to prefer, I would go with the Samsung.
I personally, I've used all these cameras. I like the Samsung the best.
So that brings us to our next topic, and that's screen technology. So in terms of screens, we all know who's king here. Samsung.
AMOLED. And you can't get anything better.
Yep. The best screen out of any of these phones, unfortunately, is the Note 7. And I say unfortunately because this phone is now off the market, and the screen is absolutely phenomenal. 2K. It actually supports HDR. The first phone in the world to do HDR.
It's crazy.
I unfortunately never got to try that because they announced it when they announced the phone. I never really saw HDR content on this phone. They said Amazon, I think, was going to have it, and maybe Netflix, but maybe the S8 will have it. That would be really cool. So this has the best screen, the best blacks, the best colors, the best viewing angles. The curve is so subtle, but it looks cool.
The viewing angles are amazing. Like, I don't know if you've ever used an AMOLED screen, but like I'm looking at it like complete sideways, and I can still see the screen fine. You use like maybe the LG screen. I think it's a Quad HD display.
It is. It's
Quad HD. You look at it from the side. It's not the same.
It's not. Yeah, it's very reflective as
well.
well.
Very reflective, and the blacks don't look as nice. Hands down, AMOLED is the way to go if you want a good screen.
And also in really high brightness settings, the Note 7 really did well in direct sunlight, which is
as well as this.
Yeah, which is a complete turnaround from AMOLED. AMOLED, like 4 or 5 years ago, when they first were coming out in phones, they were horrible outside. But
sucked outside.
Now they're really, really good. And that brings us to the Pixel, which also has an AMOLED screen, and actually it's a Samsung AMOLED panel.
Same thing. So it's very, very close to the S7 Edge.
I would say that this panel isn't as good as the S7 Edge or the Note 7, but it is very good. I would say it's probably the Note 5 panel, something around that level of quality.
Which is still good.
It's still very good. So
I had this phone for a while, and I used it outside. Direct sunlight, you could use it, no problem.
And then that brings us back to LCD, which is an older technology, as you guys know. The V20 has a pretty big 5.7-inch Quad HD LCD screen, and it's pretty good for an LCD, but I still prefer AMOLED for its colors, contrast, its viewing angles. But this is a pretty decent LCD in terms of LCD, and I do like the iPhone 7's LCD because they do have the punchier colors this year, trying to match the technology of OLED. It does look a lot better than the 6S.
It gets pretty bright for us. A small screen like that. It gets bright enough.
Yeah, and outdoors it works well. Battery life for the screen's consumption isn't bad. Now, this is the 7. If you get the 7 Plus, you do get a 1080p screen, but unfortunately, Apple still doesn't do 2K resolution, so you are going to lose a little bit of quality compared to these other phones.
I believe they're moving to AMOLED for the iPhone
Next
8.
year, that's
Yeah.
the rumor that everyone's saying.
I hope so.
So yeah, that would be cool. And that is going to bring us to the next topic, which is software. Other than the iPhone, all these are running Android.
Yeah.
But some of these have skins. Samsung has TouchWiz.
Yeah.
LG has their own skin.
There's only 2 phones here that are running 7.0 Nougat, which is the Pixel and the V20, which is cool.
Yep, but they're 2 different versions of Android 7.
Completely different.
Yeah, because LG has their
GX something.
Their skin. I don't know what it's called.
Whatever it's called. It's personally, I've used the LG phone for years now. I don't like LG skin at all. I always put a launcher over it. Actually, I always put a launcher over it anyway. It gets laggy on certain apps. It's not the best skin, but I mean, if you're someone that doesn't use your phone all the time, it's okay.
Yeah, I've noticed the skin on the LG phones. It's definitely cleaned up compared to their old skins.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot more subtle, but it's still probably, out of these phones, the least favorite of mine as well.
Yeah, I don't like
the Samsung TouchWiz software also has gotten much better. I have been a big Samsung guy for years, and the Note 7 was probably the most subtle version of TouchWiz, the Grace UX. However, going from this to a Pixel is still a huge, almost night and day difference. So, I still say that the software needs to be refined more with Samsung, and even the S7 had that same issue with its software. But even though this performed better, the Note 7, I still saw some issues with stuttering and battery life more than I did with the S7. The S7 I think was more refined. And then the iPhone, it does have iOS. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, you get good battery life on an iPhone if you don't excessively use it. The way the chip that on the iPhone works, it's meant for like, standby time. Yeah, exactly. It's optimized. If it's in your pocket, you're just doing whatever. It will last quite a while. But if you're on your phone taking videos, playing games,
doing hotspot,
whatever the hell you want to do,
it's gonna kill your battery. It has 2 low power cores and 2 high power cores. The 2 low power cores are extremely efficient. The 2 high power cores use up a lot of battery life.
Yeah, they're very high powered, but they use up a lot of battery.
Yeah. So the iPhone 7 is, in terms of software, it works very well. It's fast and snappy. I mean, honestly, for me, out of these phones, it's Pixel or iPhone, and that's because they're both extremely responsive. They're both built by the software manufacturer, so they both work really well with the hardware. And that's going to get us to our next section, which is features and extras. So
maybe we should start with the V20.
Yeah, the V20 has a bunch of different. He's going to go over all that.
I just got this today. It just came out on Verizon. Basically, the cool thing about this is it's got a second display. It's just a little top panel right here.
Yeah, it's a little strip if you want to see that up close.
Very small.
It's all one big panel here, even though that's a second screen, and it's actually 2 separate LCDs. You can see a little gap when you turn the
actual
when you
phone
turn
on.
the screen on. Well, that's a black background on there, so it's kind of hard to see the gap, but there is a gap there.
Yeah, you can play with your media. There's like settings like the flashlight, quick controls, all your apps. Let's say you want Snapchat, put it up there, whatever.
Well, not all your apps, shortcuts.
Shortcuts. There's about 5 apps there. Another feature is there's 2 cameras on the back. There's a 16 megapixel regular viewing angle, and then there's an 8 megapixel wide angle. It's almost like a GoPro. Personally, I've used them I mean, we've only had the phone for a day, but just playing around with them, the 8 megapixel is very it's almost like
it's grainy,
and it's not that great.
It's not good. In low light, it's horrible. I think the 8 megapixel probably is only good outside.
Yeah.
We haven't got a chance to test it too much.
I will be testing it tomorrow. I might put some video up on there, but it's not. It's from what
not impressed.
Not crazy. The 16 megapixel, as well. I had a G4, and honestly, I think it's the exact same camera. I think they just took that camera and put it in here. I mean, it's not a bad camera, but it's definitely not something special.
LG, you're getting lazy this year.
Yeah.
Do something new for next year with the G6. Put a nice camera in there, because this did not impress us. The G5 did not impress. It did not sell well, and the whole module thing on the G5 pretty much flopped.
This is where the V20 really shines. It has a hi-fi audio jack, or audio.
DAC.
DAC,
The
my
DAC is
bad.
really high quality. The speaker's pretty decent as well.
I personally tested both the speaker and the audio headphone jack. It is it sounds amazing. If you play any type of music through this, if you're an audiophile, this is the phone for you. It really sounds great.
And the iPhone is not, because obviously no headphone.
No headphone jack. It's the only phone without one.
Yep.
Yeah, other features. It has removable battery, which I think is pretty sick.
That's really unique. You won't get that on anything.
Yeah, no one.
Much,
How do you?
except for the G5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 3200 milliamp removable battery. It also has SD card storage, which I personally really like. Let's say you have like a second camera that uses micro SD storage, you can just plop that right in your phone, and yeah, or if you run out of storage. The thing is about this just came out, so you cannot get other batteries for it just yet, but you will be able to. And let's say you're out on the go, 0 to 100, you know, right there.
Yeah, so that pretty much covers most of the features that are unique to the V20.
All these phones have fingerprint sensors, by the way.
And the next phone I would say that has a ton of features is the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. These are both Korean phones. Koreans put so many features in their phones, which are awesome, which is why I usually get Samsung. This has the S Pen, which allows you to take notes and use it to highlight things and do other cool things. You can actually make GIFs out of things on your screen with the S Pen, which is a really cool feature.
It's cool for Snapchat.
It's water resistant. It's got the heart rate sensor, and it's a health sensor. It does a few other things on the back. It does have the curved glass front and back. It has the HDR screen, which is really cool if you like to watch movies and videos, but of course I wasn't able to test that. It has the iris scanner built in. It has the SD card slot built in. It has fast wireless charging. I mean, there's so many things on this phone that it had that were unique to it, and it was a really good phone. And the S7 Edge is very similar. It has the same curved glass screen, but a little bit smaller. It has the really fast fingerprint reader, the water resistance as well. Doesn't have the iris scanner, but has the fast wireless charging, and you can plug it into a Gear VR. So very similar. The next phone,
The Samsung Galaxy S7 is the only one without USB Type-C, other than the iPhone.
yep. The next one for features, I would say, is the Pixel. The Pixel does have a couple of unique features. For example, when you're in the camera, you can go like that, kind of like the Motorola, and switch to the selfie camera. It also has a really unique build to it, where it's metal and glass on the back split, and it's got the tapered edge. That's more design though. It has Android 7. I mean, it's hard for me to say because I came from a Note 7, which is so feature focused, whereas this is kind of vanilla Android, so it doesn't have quite as many unique features to it. It does have something pretty cool with moves, they call it. If you go like this on the fingerprint reader, by scrolling down, it will bring down your notification tray and put it back up if you go up. And then also, it has something like 3D Touch. If you hold down on an icon, you get options with it, just like on the iPhone, but it doesn't have a 3D Touch screen. It's just holding down the screen. So that is something that's unique to the Pixel.
Oh, show them the fingerprint readers on this and the V20.
Well, right, they're on the back.
But also, there's a unique thing. You don't have to actually press the reader. It senses that your finger is there. Now watch this. Now, I'm not even going to press the reader. If I just place my finger on the reader,
it'll unlock.
It will unlock.
Yeah, they had that last year.
Why is it not working?
Yeah. They had that last year with the Nexus phones.
Weird. Oh, because you took the fingerprint off.
Yeah, but they do have that feature built into the Nexus phones, and that actually brings to the iPhone, which doesn't have a physical button at all. It's just a slot that looks like a button, and then it has the haptic engine that vibrates to make it feel like you're pushing a button. This phone does have the quad LED light for taking pictures, so that's something that's pretty unique.
I don't think any other phone has that.
No. It also has 3D Touch. Nothing has 3D Touch yet. They have a similar thing in Android now. This does have the new W1 chip, so if you get the Apple headphones, it'll work really well with it, and a lot of Beats headphones now have it built in. It does have stereo speakers. This is the only phone I'm surprised that has stereo speakers compared to these other ones.
The V20 is a loudspeaker. It's not stereo though.
Yeah, so that is something really cool about this phone. That does have stereo speakers. I love that feature. Doesn't have wireless charging. Doesn't have fast charging. It is water resistant.
Out of all of these phones, that's actually the slowest charging phone.
Well, if you use a iPad charger, it does charge pretty fast.
But then that ruins your battery.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the iPhone isn't like anything crazy. I mean, the 7 compared to the 6S,
Not much different.
not a huge ton of features. But
The iPhone's always been if you just want a smartphone, you go to it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the iPhone isn't crazy on features, but it's a good phone.
It's reliable.
Yeah, exactly. And that brings us to value. Now, I guess we'll start with the iPhone because this is one of the most expensive phones.
Yep.
And this is specifically a 7/128, which it runs about $750. Not too bad for price, but if you go up to a 7 Plus 128, then you're at $870, and if you go to a 256, you're at $970. So their top of the line one has a lot of storage, but it's almost $1,000 with taxes.
For a phone.
It's $1,000 after taxes and fees and all that. So that phone is very expensive. But if you compare it to the Pixel, they both run the same price. This is the 128 gig XL, and this is, I believe, $870, which is the same as a 128 gig iPhone. And they do not have a 256 gig option or an SD card slot. So that is something to consider. However, 128 gig is plenty for someone like me because I'll show you this. This is crazy, but I have 472 apps installed.
472. And it doesn't lag at all. I could not. He showed me that. I was
200 of those are games.
What?
And it runs excellent. So, and I still have 40 gigs of storage remaining.
And the cloud storage.
Exactly. I was going to get to that. I have a bunch of pictures on here, over like 20 or 30 gigs of pictures, and I still have 40 gigs free on this. And it does come with unlimited Google Cloud storage as a feature. So
Full quality, by the way.
Yeah.
Not like the
4K video.
Yeah, you can get like unlimited Google Photos storage, but it's not. It's like 50% quality.
Yep.
This is 4K.
So one thing people were saying about this phone was the price they were complaining about, and that's because they're used to Nexus phones, which are usually a little bit cheaper. But in terms of specs, you do get a Snapdragon 821, which is faster than these other Android phones.
This is the only phone with that processor right now.
Yep, and it's made by Google. It's phoned by Google, so it's a lot more reliable, a lot more, I guess, it just works like the iPhone does. It's a lot more consistent. So this is a really good phone. For the price, I think it's definitely worth it. I really think it's worth every penny. It's a really good phone.
If you ask me, it's the iPhone of Android, and that's not a bad thing. It's just really reliable, but it also has Android on it, so you can do other things with it.
And then you have the Note 7, which if you bought one of these, you're probably pissed off, and Samsung only gave you $25. So in terms of value there, right there, and as a pissed off customer of the Samsung Note 7, I would say the value is not there. However, if it didn't have the explosion problem, for the price, it did give you a lot of bang for the buck, especially because this was like $850 when it came out,
Like
whereas the S7 Edge was like $672, I think, for Verizon at least, that's the price. So, or $692.
Yeah, these are all Verizon phones.
Yeah, so this is like only a $60 difference, and you're getting a decent amount more in terms of features. So I think this was a pretty good value as compared to the S7 Edge, which I think wasn't overpriced or anything, but looking back now, it is kind of a pricey phone because it's still the same price. It didn't go on sale or anything. And this is pretty much the only Samsung flagship you can get right now.
They need to take care of that phone.
Yeah, I think they should give it a little bit of a price reduction now that it's like over 6 months old.
That's their only flagship right now because the Note 7's dead.
And then if you look at the V20, I'm surprised that they dropped the price down to like in the 600s for Verizon. But if you look at like T-Mobile, it's like an $800 phone, and AT&T as well. So for $800, this is definitely not worth the price. It's not, to me, flagship price of $800. I would pay like $500-600 for this,
Yeah.
and I'd be happy with that price.
Nothing more.
But if you're on AT&T or T-Mobile and you're paying $800, not worth it.
The only reason is just it doesn't feel premium. Like these other phones have these premium materials. They feel premium. They work like that. The V20, I mean, it's not a bad phone. It just doesn't feel all. It's not like all there.
The next thing we're gonna get to is connectivity on these phones and reliability. So we're gonna start with the iPhone 7. And the reason we're going to start with this phone is because I have been having connectivity problems from day one. And this is actually not my first iPhone 7. I had a 256 gig regular black one, and that one was giving me so many problems. Now, specifically Verizon had a lot of problems with the iPhone 7, so that could just be a Verizon thing. They did fix it with an iOS update, but they didn't fully fix it because I'm still getting issues. I already did new iPhone, software update, software reset. I'm still getting people saying, I don't hear you, I don't hear you. And I know it's not this phone, I know it's not my service because I have Verizon and my other phones work, and I have another phone, the Pixel, that I'm using.
And we have good service around this area.
We have pretty good service. Unless you're on Wi-Fi calling, the iPhone 7, in my experience, did not get great reception. I think it has to do with the new antenna bands because they put the antenna bands on the sides so that you don't get a line on the back. It looks cool, but in my experience, did not work very well for reception.
I think phones are putting looks before everything.
Apple definitely. Yeah.
Definitely Apple, but the S7 Edge and the Note, they are completely glass. It looks really nice, but you drop it from 2 feet without a case, it's shattered.
Yeah, the thing I was gonna say about the Note 7 though, because of the glass in the back, it gets pretty good reception. It's really good in terms of reliability for phone calls. The speaker is not as loud, so when you're on the phone, if you're on speaker, it's not going to be as good as these other phones.
Any of the waterproof phones, the speakers aren't that loud, and the mics, they don't. You
don't pick up as much sound.
No.
But in terms of connectivity, the S7 Edge and the Note 7, pretty good quality on phone calls.
Haven't had any problems with them.
The Pixel, I have had some connectivity issues with, like my iPhone. Not as bad, but people have been saying I don't hear you. I don't know why, because this is glass on one portion for the sensors.
They did that on purpose just to get better service.
Yeah, exactly. And still I have problems with this. But in terms of like everything else, it's working fine. And then the Pixel, I'm sorry, the V20, we can't really say because he's only had it.
I've only had it maybe 5 hours.
Yeah, 5 hours.
Just got it today.
But
it just came out of Verizon.
It does have plastic on the top and bottom, so it should get pretty good reception.
I've made a few phone calls already, and I've had no problems. But that's only been a few hours.
Yeah, it's only a few hours, so that one we're gonna have to leave an update for you guys in the video. It's time to give a overall score for each phone. We're each gonna give our own scores, and you can, based on what we told you, you can make your own score up if you'd like. Leave a comment. I think if it wasn't for the exploding batteries, then Note 7 would probably get one of the best scores here. I would give this phone probably a 9 out of 10 if it wasn't for the battery problem. But because of the fact that there's a battery problem, it has a 0 out of 10 because this is a fire hazard. Get it out of your house, send it to Samsung, keep this phone away from
People got
your family.
Seriously hurt.
It's not safe. I've had it in a fireproof bag until this video, and I'm planning on sending it back to Samsung. I just wanted to make this video for you guys, so be safe with this phone. It's not worth it. So this phone, we're gonna give it.
I give it a 9.
Disqualified.
But other than if it didn't have a battery problem, I give it a 9 as well.
So we're gonna disqualify it for this test.
RIP Note 7.
For the next phone, the Pixel XL, and the regular Pixel. For me personally, I love this phone. Everything about it is really, really well built. Doesn't have every feature under the sun. Doesn't have removable memory. Doesn't have removable battery.
And the water resistance isn't really there.
Doesn't have the water resistance. I hope that they fix that next year. So for this phone, I would also give it a 9, maybe even a 9.5, because it's really blown me away. I was really ready to give up on Android for this year and just get an iPhone 7 Plus and then maybe get a small Android as my secondary phone. But this phone really made me think that Android is really doing something special. It runs really, really, really well. This is my favorite phone of the year. I would definitely say it's a really good recommendation. So I would say 9.5.
I have not personally owned it. I've only used it a little bit, and I've done some reviews. I personally would only give it a 7.5. Why, you say? Well, no SD card slot, and I cannot deal with that. I hate no expandable storage, and the water resistance isn't really there. But other than that, it's a really reliable phone. I think it's fast, and it's cool how you can have so many games and apps on it and it doesn't lag. So I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Okay. The next phone I'm going to take out is the Samsung S7 Edge. This phone is a good phone. It's pretty reliable. It's pretty fast. But it doesn't have USB-C, so it's not future-proof. It's curved glass, not durable.
Not durable.
It doesn't have all the features that the Note 7 did. It's still flagship, though. So I personally am going to say an 8 out of 10.
Same.
So it's a good phone. It's still something that you could consider these days.
I give it an 8 because the durability is not there. It's really not. Like, you drop, it's a whole glass phone. Your glass is not durable. You drop this thing, you gotta get it replaced, and it's expensive. So 8 as well.
Then we'll go to the iPhone. This phone is solid, works very well, does a good job at what it can do, but it is lacking in terms of features and in terms of durability and things like that. It's not bad on durability, but it's not as good as the other phones. So I personally, I'm going to give it a 7.5. Just because it's still running a 720p LCD screen. The battery,
hell, Apple?
battery, even though it's small, is decent. But if you use it all the time, it's not perfect. It's not great. The camera's good. And the software is decent, but
it's a phone you would get if you want to do smartphone things, but you don't want the complications of like maybe a newer Android.
Yeah, if you're not a techie, this is a good phone.
That's definitely a good phone.
But
I'd give it a 7.
Yeah.
For iPhone 7.
Yeah, there you go. And then we got the V20. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of LG. Last couple of years, they did, really come up from almost nothing when they were having their old phones like the Optimuses, but. So they're definitely better nowadays than they used to be. But they need some things to work on. They're still not up there with the rest of the flagships. So for me personally, I know this is kind of harsh, but I'm going to give it a 6.5. And here's why. The cameras, in my opinion, suck. The battery...
They used to be good.
Yeah, the battery is small, even though it's removable. And I'm starting to get away from removable batteries just because if you put a big battery in there and you don't put something removable, it's going to get better battery life. And with a removable battery, it's so hard to make it waterproof.
And it's expensive.
Look at the S5. That was waterproof with a removable battery.
Horrible. So many problems.
Horrible design.
So many problems.
The camera is also not durable.
You can break it.
It's LCD. The second screen, in my opinion, is kind of just a waste of space. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I mean, the specs aren't bad. On paper, it looks good, but once you actually use this phone, in my opinion, not the best phone in the
It's
world.
pretty big, but I would give it a 6.8 because I want to give it a 6.5. I want to give it a 7. I don't really, I can't really choose between. The only reason is, well, LG software and the freaking cameras. Like, I mean, what are you doing with that selfie camera? It looks like a potato. Like,
yeah,
really?
it's horrible.
It's horrible. Like, if you want to take a selfie on this thing, it looks like crap. Other than that, I mean, it's not too bad. So, 6.8 for the V10.
All right, and if you want, leave your comment, subscribe, tell us what you think is the best phone. Out of these phones, personally, I like the Pixel out of all of them for my favorite.
My favorite's the S7 Edge. I like it for the water resistance, and it's just a fast phone.
Yeah, and if you want to see, we're going to have a video coming up showing you a little bit more features on the V20.
Yeah, we just
maybe
got that.
Some camera things and battery life and signal. So please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.